Once again, my name is Allison Mancinelli. I am with GovPath. I'm super excited to start this webinar off today. I'm going to introduce our CRO, Brian Weber, and Brian's going to introduce our speaker for today. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Allison. My name is Brian Weber. I know I've met a lot of you over the past few years. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for GovPath, which is, again, for those that are maybe new to the role, GovPath represents a merger of both Gray Quarter and TruePoint Solutions over the last couple of years. And so we're really excited to be here with Abby Schultz today. And I want to formally introduce Abby. So Abby is the IT Applications Manager at the City of Avondale, Arizona. Abby and I forged a professional relationship about 2 years ago as we were both starting in our roles around the same time. We tackled the challenges at Avondale like you would eat an elephant, which is essentially one bite at a time. Abby, you want to say hello to the audience?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you and share our journey with GovPath on our BPR.
All right, fantastic. And again, to reiterate, Allison, please feel free to enter questions within the Q&A and or the chat. We will be monitoring it. And if we don't get to your questions at the end, we will be publishing all the answers to these questions in our recap communication. So don't be shy and certainly ask away. All right, Abby. So we are here today to talk about the elements of business process review, or BPR for short. I'm going to briefly define BPR from a GovPath perspective, but more importantly, I'll hand the mic over to you to define it from a jurisdiction perspective shortly thereafter. So essentially from GovPath, it's really 3 steps. We talk to the people doing the work. We really focus on process agnostic of technology first. We really want to understand the role of the key users and stakeholders at the jurisdiction. And then we audit your platform environment. This call happens to be around Excella, but we actually audit multiple environments so that we can marry up how you're using the solution to how your process and role best fits the solution. And then lastly, we connect the dots. We provide a pretty in-depth report focused around what to fix now, what to fix next, and maybe what can wait. And that is really the 3-step process of BPR that we go through. It's roughly 10 to 12 week process that ends in this technology roadmap. But Abby, really, most importantly, for our listeners who may not be familiar, how does Avondale, Arizona define business process review?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It's a great place to start. So for me, again, I'm in IT. I'm the applications manager, so oversee most of the systems here at the City of Avondale. So for me, the business process review is about pausing long enough to understand how work is happening. Not how we think it works on paper or in the system, but how employees and our residents experience it every day. So it's looking at that intersection of people, process, and technology and asking, where are these aligned and where are they creating friction? It's less about the system itself and more about how we're using it to deliver services to our community. It was important to understand the why behind how our business partners, our employees feel about the tools that they use today.
Thank you, Abby. And so I'm sure by the end of this, there's going to be on the line that where something is said multiple times that really resonate with them, or they think, wow, I'm watching the movie of fill in the blank jurisdiction. So Avondale specifically, what triggered the need for a BPR?
Yeah, probably like most of us, these growing cities, we've grown a lot over the last few years. We knew we had friction, but we just didn't have full visibility into it. We were seeing workarounds, processes that look different depending on who you talk to, which department. There were definitely inefficiencies, but yet they seem to be siloed between the departments. And then we got to a point where we realized we didn't want just to keep layering solutions or throwing more people and resources at it or changing solutions on top of unclear processes and the potential lack of maybe a lack of skilling and knowledge on that system, but also then what that solution, actually the potential of it. So for us, especially from an IT perspective, we didn't have a technology problem. We had a clarity problem. Again, we had a clarity problem. So working with GovPath and then all of our business partners in the various departments, together, we helped address that lack of clarity to identify opportunities to improve. So for me, the BPR really felt like that right step to get aligned before making any more changes to the system, right? We knew we needed to do something differently. We weren't sure where it was. And working with GovPath, that's where like, this is the answer to help us understand where we go next.
I appreciate that. And, you know, if to the audience, if you've ever attended or virtually watched a TED Talk or a self-help sort of motivator, there's one or two statements that just have such a profound impact on you. And Abby said something that is, I actually want to revisit because she mentioned we didn't have a technology problem. We had a clarity problem. So can you unpack that a bit, Abby?
Sure.
What does that mean? That because most people go, oh, the solution doesn't work.
Right.
Or I hear a lot of times, we used to do it this way, and they're very comfortable with how things used to be done, perhaps in a legacy solution or perhaps on-prem versus SaaS, et cetera. So what does that mean? We didn't really have a technology problem. We had a
Sure.
clarity problem.
Well, when you hear like, hey, this isn't working, or hey, I want to be able to do this, but it can't do that. But do we really know that? Like, that was the thing. Like, there was a lot of people who had this conception and they're working day to day in the system, and they're like, it's just not working for me. But to truly articulate, oh, it's because I can't do A and B to get this result that's going to improve the experience with my customer or make my internal time efficiencies better. No one could pinpoint what that was. So that's where I say clarity. We couldn't articulate what truly was the underlying cause of the problems. I'm just going to use problems generically, the problems that everyone was experiencing, but they were all different. And that's where they say clarity, right? Because we couldn't define what the true problems were. And so we didn't want to just say, let's go fix something. How can we fix the system or tool when we couldn't articulate what that problem was? So that's where, again, the business process review took us a step back to say, we need to really walk through it all so we could pinpoint what that problem truly was and what the fix would be for that. Does that make sense with the?
Absolutely. So
okay.
you know there's inefficiencies going on. You just don't know where and even how do I begin to look under the hood. Completely makes sense. You know, I have the privilege, especially at this role and my previous role, to travel the country and meet a lot of the folks that are on the call. And I hear that over and over and over, except it's within the context of fill in the blank jurisdiction. I'm gonna audible slightly here, Abby, and in you and I talking over the last couple of years, you've mentioned that BPR really gave a voice to your end users.
Yes.
Can you expand a bit on, you know, I hear a lot of time that leadership says constituents are the most important aspect of all of this, right? The public, and
right.
I don't disagree with that. But you kind of flipped the script and said, well, I want to give a voice to my users. Why did you do that? And then how did it ultimately connect back to constituents?
Sure. So one of the big things is like just getting everyone together to talk about their concerns. I think that was the key. There was already meetings happening, but it was taking a step back and saying, what's working well for me? What is not? What are my pain points? Because ultimately, if our employees are, especially since, you know, I oversee so many different solutions across all departments, all employees within the city of Avondale, it's really important. It's like, you want to make sure that that employee, for their task they're being, it's efficient, it's productive for them, it's making it easier for them so they can do other important tasks, right? Because if they're struggling, then how are we improving the experience with our customer, right? And so really focusing on our employees and what they're doing day to day and how to make their lives better is actually, it's a win-win then for everyone else. And so that's really like going through the process was like, oh, wow, right? Getting everyone in the room and then going through and actually having them have that voice, right? And that's what kind of surprised me through all of this is that when working with everyone and giving them that opportunity, we didn't necessarily need any new technology. We just needed to understand what improvements we could do, right? What were those handoffs looking like? What are like features within an existing tool that we can enable? Is there a way to opportunity to standardize our processes?
Yeah.
So,
That helps clarify, voice equals ownership, right? When you have a
right.
voice, you feel like you have ownership. And when ownership is established, you have alignment and buy-in. And that's ultimately nirvana. That's where everyone wants to get to, is this joint alignment between business and IT and leadership, et cetera. So I appreciate you clarifying that.
Yeah.
Let's move to the assessment process, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I think on this call, a lot of people have heard versions of BPR or customer success or an on-site assessment. This is much more than a one-day on-site assessment. Depending upon the jurisdiction, it can be 8 to 12 weeks. That said, the involvement and demand from the employees at the jurisdiction is not what you would think. So can you break down the most enlightening part of the assessment process for you?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, it was just having everyone get together in the room and being able to have that voice and working on it together. We did do some interviews just one-on-one in case folks didn't feel like they necessarily could use their voice in a call based on other attendees, but it was really an opportunity for everyone to be able to share that. And not only that, but talking about like what you say, like the overall effort for me, looking, at it for the business, we try to minimize that overall impact to them. So really, even though we did interviews with every department and then division within that department, we had 5 departments that we worked with, right, that touched this particular solution. And then we did the one-on-one or a couple people in these interviews. So the most difficult part was trying to schedule calendar invites across the board. We did like 13 one-hour sessions. And so the commitment for each employee was either from an interview perspective, and again, letting them be heard. It was an avenue to let them be heard. What was working well, what's their pain points, and dream big. What's that one thing or 2 things that they would love to be able to see or do? And just no matter, not worried about cost or time or anything. So having that ability to share that information. And then we just spent like an hour reviewing the final process review report. And then we had a meeting together. So max for some folks, it was maybe 2 hours of effort that they had to commit to. For others is maybe max of 4 hours. It was not a big lift for us to go through this assessment at all. And it was, the output is what's very important. So we can talk more about that. I'll let you go on to the next one.
And for our listeners, the report that Abby's mentioning, it really provides a matrix by department of recommended adjustments and or evolution that's ranked by difficulty, impact, effort, and most importantly, if you truly know Excella, dependency, right? Because we all know Excella's strength is Construct API and its ability to integrate to anything. But unless you have a PhD in complex scripting, there's highways and byways of you change one thing over here and all of a sudden something over here changes. And so the GovPath team actually writes down and highlights the dependencies that if the city or county wants to change item number 37, for example, it's linked to item number 13 and item number 18. So we give the treasure map to all those dependencies that is so critical when you're evaluating an enterprise-wide solution. So let's talk about change and actions as it relates from what you experienced at BPR, Abby. So
Sure.
how have the actions from the BPR changed your approach to other vendors, not named
Yeah.
Excella, right? There, we focused on Excella, but how did you
Right.
widen your visibility?
Yeah, it definitely raised our maturity as an organization, right? We're much more disciplined now about looking at that process, right, before platform. We ask better questions. We don't want to assume that a new tool is going to fix it when we don't even can't articulate what that fix is, right? What that problem statement is. And that's the key. Asking when we get requests coming in, we do have a formal project intake for anything that new, but that is the most important question. What problem are we actually trying to solve, right? Because it might not be a technology. You've said it before, it's the people process technology. You could have all the technology in the world, but if you don't have the people to understand what they're doing and knowledgeable and trained on something, that technology is not going to enable that, right? You need to look at the people and the process first and foremost. And that's what I mean. Is it a workflow issue? Is it just a training gap that we can easily solve for? Or is it a simple, in an existing tool, making some configuration changes? So again, we're asking more direct questions, working with our business partners together to figure out what that problem is that we are trying to solve. And it's not always going to be a new technology, a new solution.
That's great. And I'm going to ask you to expand a bit
Yeah.
before we move on to the next question, Abby.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind sharing maybe two or three key recommendations that resonated for Avondale. Now, this could be specific to Avondale and not resonate with other agencies, but what were a couple ahas that you felt were impactful, and you've either decided within your first fiscal year or next 2 fiscal years
Sure.
to take action?
Yeah, some of the key ones, and you're probably people like, oh, that's a no-brainer, but we really didn't know. Some of the items that I'll just start with the quick wins, right? So we got a list of many items, and I'll share more about how we took that and what we've done over the last 2 years. But when we got the initial report, there were several items that were as simple as turning on a feature and enabling a checkbox. That was the crazy part to think here all along. The pain points that our business partners were experiencing was a simple 2-minute change that really didn't require a big lift at all. I mean, it literally was like a minute and done. That was the shocker. Like, oh my gosh, we had a bunch of those quick wins that were very easy to fix and enable. It wasn't even like something was broken because we didn't have a feature turned on or a function available. It's there in the system, but we just didn't enable it. So that was so like, wow. And then just even how the individual persons will get the information, how they can put it to their favorites, again, how they use the tool. That was like another wow moment, right? And some of it was done on the fly as we were doing through the interview. So, I mean, we did a lot of big things and we can talk about that more, but it's just those small, quick wins that did not take much time at all, was
Yeah.
huge gains for our teams.
And speaking as the vendor, since we've had a relationship over
Yeah.
at least 2 years or longer, with the bigger items, we all know that fiscal dependency is important in our world. And so when it comes time for the next fiscal year planning, you bring out that report and we talk about, okay, what do we include that's
Right.
going to make the biggest impact and so forth as it relates to the next fiscal year and the next fiscal year. So do you want to speak a bit to
Sure.
the longevity of this as a technology roadmap, and then we'll go on from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So like Brian said, we've been great partners for the last few years. And like I said, I've been with the City of Avondale for 2.5 years now. So it's pretty much since I started recognizing we had that clarity problem. And with that, so not only going through the business process review, we knew that we had a challenge from a resource perspective, from an IT. right, we knew we did not have enough staff to be able to support this. So working with GovPath, and going through the business process review, we was like, well, we also need to be able to make these changes. And so we partnered with, brought on managed services, which is fantastic. It is changed how we do our business, because now I have a team of experts that know how to work within the system and understand the business and understanding permitting. And we have a whole team that help us to do those break fix and minor changes, along with then the big ones, like you mentioned, Brian, right? There were some larger type of changes that we needed to make as part of the BPR result. And so with that, we made sure we had professional services on board so that we could tackle those items as well. So it was a nice mix. We have business process review, we get the results, have managed services to help support us along the way. And then we have professional services to tackle the bigger, we'll call it project related items. So that way we were covered and we could actually see that journey from where we were to where we are today. But we couldn't have done it just by ourselves. We would still be trying to figure out what to fix, right? If without the BPR, that was the roadmap and the partnership that we needed to keep things moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it was the bridge essentially, or the
Yes.
tool. I think and to the audience, if you have questions that you want to ask in the Q&A, we're about to open that up. I have one more question for Abby, and then we'll get to some of the questions and close. But we had roughly 90 registered individuals for this call. Some subset of that is on attendance today. So a lot are listening. What's your recommendation for other agencies that might be struggling in similar ways, but unique to fill in the blank jurisdiction? How would you recommend what step to take moving forward?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question, right? And because I don't think we're any different. I go to different user groups and conferences, and I see my peers in other cities and state, and it's interesting. So we're all kind of in the same boat per se. And so the big takeaway I would say is just don't wait till you hear all that frustration and then it turns into burnout and nothing's getting done. And if you hear that common theme, like this tool, this system isn't working, I don't like it, we don't want it anymore, find out why, right? Because I bet you'll find that it starts with the people, right? There's the training and knowledge gap and processes. Do we even have a process, right? Is it defined? Is it documented? So we could review and say, what do we need to fix along the way? So that's a big takeaway, is like work with your business partners and figure it out. And then, because, especially if you're hearing that consistently across the board about inefficiencies, that's the big signal, right? What we wanted to do was get clarity, right? Get clarity on what we were doing today and what we needed to change before we invested any more money or add more tools. That's just not a sustainable business model. And then from my perspective, you're adding more technical debt. And that's not a good thing from city looking at it from a budgetary perspective. Need to involve your business partners in that conversation. You have to understand where that friction is, right? And a lot of times it could be something really quite simple. And at this point, it's like just taking a step back and assess is a really good thing to do, right? It's how you go from reactive, oh, it's not working, we need to fix it, to very strategic approach. So at the end of the day, right, it's about improving how we serve our community while improving our business partners, our employees, their experience, right? And that's something we can all align on. Now, I do want to share, Brian, if I have some time, I want to just share with everyone what we did here at City of Avondale. When we got our business process review report and we walked through it, it's like the biggest thing we knew is we weren't going to just say, okay, this is great. All right, I'm going to file it over here, throw it on the table. I'll get to it later. Because you know what? Then it was just like, well, why, right? What we did, we took that report and we have all these findings, right? All of these items, the quick wins, they were prioritized what items we should do with detail. So we knew where to focus. It wasn't just here you go figure it out on your own. No. was very detailed. All we did is we took that report and put it into like a tracking tool. Didn't use anything fancy. We just dumped the data into Excel and started tracking it. In addition, all those people that we interviewed, we created a core team and we meet bi-weekly. We've been meeting bi-weekly since after the business process review was completed. We created the core team, and that has representatives with each group, multiple people, at least one in every division. And we meet bi-weekly. We review that tracking, that we call it our enhancement list. And we, like, for all the highs, we rank them so we know which order to do the highs, which ones like in progress, started, we keep notes on it. So at any point in time, people could go in and look like what has been completed, what has been done. We're already, so we started with FY25, we have FY26, and now we already have items we're putting into FY27. And I would say that from the initial BPR, we probably completed, I would say, close to 100% of those items. So, but it took a partnership, right? It was internally building a team, working on it, know that we wanted to make improvements, working with GovPath, with managed services and professional services. And so we've just continued just to look at that. And I feel like it's been a great success story. Things are going really well. And now it's just motivated our business together with IT, like what's next? What do we do next together? And it's just been a really great experience.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We certainly echo the partnership. It sounds like BPR was chapter one in how Avondale streamlines efficiencies, maximize the voice of your end users, but also ultimately your constituents do very much benefit.
Yes.
And so BPR is chapter one, but it's what you're saying to the group here is it's very important to not let it be its own book. There are multiple chapters that follow after BPR, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we're going to shift to a couple questions because we have some time, and then we will close. So I love this because these are the type of questions I get all the time, Abby. So we're gonna tackle this together. But
Okay.
the first question is a multi-parter, but I'm gonna read it and then you can provide perspective, essentially the triggers leading into BPR.
Okay.
So the question is, who's the best to lead BPR process, as well as the evaluation of who and what is needed? Did you find IT leading to be most efficient, or to let the core customer facing departments lead the effort and IT is more of a sponsor and a SME role, particularly given the clarity problem? So in short, is it better to have the department that's having the internal external customer challenges lead with IT supporting, or should IT really take the driver's seat?
Great question. I would say caveat that every organization is going to be different. But since IT, right, we are getting, I'll say, we're going to get the request coming into our ITSM, right, our ticketing system for if something is a break fix or I want this on a particular solution. So we have the visibility to see the department. So say it's one technology we're talking about, but we're getting multiple requests coming in from different departments. They don't know that each other is asking for something. So in this, for us, it was IT taking the lead to saying, okay, we're getting all of these requests. We need to sit down with collectively because one change could impact another department, right? We had that broader visibility into what the requests are coming in for that particular solution. So in this instance, it was our opportunity to get everyone together to talk about this, and then working with partners, since typically it's IT working with the partners on the solution and working on renewals, right? We take the lead on all of that. So it only made sense to, hey, we're seeing all of this coming in from our business partners. Hey, GovPath, what do we do? Right? And that's where that dialogue starts. So again, every organization is probably structured a little different, but for us, that's what worked. And since I oversee the applications the city uses, so it's just like, okay, I'm seeing what is happening across the whole entire organization, and I have that visibility into it to be able to take that action for everyone and go to the resources. But I'm pulling, like, they're coming along on the journey. It's not like we're pushing, hey, we're going to do this. It's like, hey guys, let's talk about this together. So really, I'm the facilitator, sponsor in getting everyone together based on what I see coming into our ticketing system, right? And saying there's a problem, but we couldn't define it. That was the issue.
Yep.
We couldn't define it. So hopefully I answered some of that question.
Yeah, it was a multi-parter, so I love those. But I will say this from our perspective, considering GovPath currently supports about 312 agencies across the United States on a variety of platforms.
Right.
What I see often, and it's a movie replaying itself, is you have IT and you have the department, and they're siloed to some degree. Could be one has a budget, one has the approval authority or the decision making. It could be more than that. It could be decentralized. It could be a cost share from a funding perspective. But we've done about a dozen BPRs in just the last 8 to 9 months because the need is so great. And the output gives you this roadmap for years. The commonality is a stakeholder from each. You have someone from IT, you have someone from the department, and they collectively drive change management as well as share in that ownership that this initiative is important. That's what I see in terms of the best success. But to every jurisdiction, you're going to have a bit of a nuance. Okay, we're going to move to the next question. Really good question and a bit shorter. So, who initiated the BPR process? Was it the users, or was it IT, or someone else?
Yeah, it was IT. Yeah, we did. Like I said, because for us, we were already meeting with the different departments on their issues. But again, we didn't understand. And that's where when I was working with you, Brian, right? We're like, hey, this is our problem. And it's like, hey, I got something for you. And it's like, that makes sense. Because I say it a lot and people will laugh at me who know me and be like, I'm always like, it's people, process, technology. It can't just be a technology issue. So how do I get to the people in the process when I'm not the one? I mean, IT doesn't use a solution. We don't use it. It's not a tool I use. I use an ITSM tool, right, to conduct my business. And so it's interesting, like, I don't have all that information. I need help. How do I help my business partners? And I don't know what that is. And that's where talking is so important, to have a great relationship with your partners like GovPath to say, hey, I hear you. I have a solution for you. And the business process review was it for us. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Another commonality I've heard from jurisdictions is that the reason working, with a systems integrator is important, like GovPath, is that everybody's probably heard of the author-editor syndrome. There's a reason why one of the greatest authors on the planet, fill in the blank, depending upon your genre preference, hires a third party to edit their own work to eliminate the unintended bias. And so we like to play that role quite often, given the amount of jurisdictions we support across the country. It also helps that about half of our executive team, as well as professional services team, used to work at a variety of permitting and licensing software firms. So we have a pretty tremendous intimate knowledge. Next question is, this is a good one. So thanks so much for this compliment in there, Abby. You spoke a lot about changes being a slow, iterative process, which this individual 100% agrees with. So what are your tips for building buy-in and retaining momentum while implementing changes over that long haul?
Yeah, I think it was important for us. One, we did it together. Okay, that was the key. Yes, IT we initiated it based on what we were hearing and seeing, But we just didn't move forward like, we're going to go do this. It was like, hey, all you users that are impacted or having challenges, but we couldn't define it. Let's do this. What are your thoughts? We did get that buy-in. We had conversations. We were meeting. And then to take that forward, again, it wasn't like IT, here you go, we're gonna go do this. No, it's like, okay, again, I look at it, I'm a facilitator on this. I'm supporting the business to ensure that they're successful and that they have the tools they need to perform their job to meet our customers' expectations. And so for that, I am the facilitator, but I am bringing all of them together. And when we meet, the teams, so we have 13 people on our core team that meet bi-weekly. I'm like, it's me and our other technical lead. The rest are all our business partners. They discuss what their priorities are, what they're going to work on, who needs to be involved. And again, I just help facilitate that meeting, but it's having everyone has a voice, and that's critical. So again, I'm there to support them in an IT capacity, but it's their business, their processes, and their, what they're doing, their
Yeah.
goals that they need to meet, right? And again, so it's great to have someone to be able to facilitate that, and I'm happy to be able to bring everyone together.
And I will give a shout out to your CIO, Jeff Sheets. He was instrumental in executive air cover, if you will. He understood what we were doing. He supported it 100%. We kept him updated, but that provided that necessary, shall we say, encouragement across department lines. Okay, there's two more questions. Go ahead.
I want to just elaborate in case anybody's wondering. So we have an IT governance committee. We meet with city manager's office, the director of finance, and we'll go and present on topics. And so with the help of GovPath, though, I presented a business case, shared it with the business first, but I presented from an IT perspective, a business case, and that was to bring on doing the business process review. It was, I explained the problem statement and here's our solution, and they approved it. It made sense because they were getting a lot of feedback that things were not working well, and we were trying to solve that problem. But first, in the business process review, helped us identify what that problem was, right? Gave us that clarity, and then the roadmap to get it done. So we do have a process, a governance process in place to be able to initiate the business process review and bring on managed services and our professional services. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No problem. I'm gonna try to get to the remaining ones, but again, if I don't, we will absolutely answer them in the recap to this. This is a really good one. I should poll this audience for questions on the next one. Did you ever hit a wall with how long the process takes to implement the entire BPR results, or to get to a place of comfort with the process itself? E.g., there's a want for change, but the expectation from leadership and or users is immediate solutions, which a lot of the times is not doable. So how do you rationalize those, Abby? And maybe
Sure.
if you want to speak to the importance of like the quick wins, that's probably where to start.
Yeah, exactly. We were looking at, so how many resources do we have? What's our time? And what's the most important? Having the BPR helped us have that roadmap to identify. So we tackled the quick wins because they were quick. And from an effort perspective, very, very small. And then the rest of the big items, we discussed them. Like I said, the ones that came out as high, we ranked those. Which ones should we do first? Collectively as a team, okay, let's do this one. We knew we had within each fiscal year, we had a bucket of hours, and how much time do we have? Which ones are required? We needed to get done ASAP. If it was a regulatory, our fees, whatever it may be, that's how we could prioritize those high ones. But then after that, it was like, okay, collectively as a team, which ones are going to make us more productive and efficient? And it was a group decision on ranking them. So it wasn't one department over another. Everyone had to agree on that approach, and that's how we did it. And we said, yep, we're going to get these done this year, this fiscal year. And even this year, as we're working through our list, because we continue to grow, we said, let's move that to FY27. So we're already thinking ahead. We did that when we first got the BPR. Which items can we move out the next year? We know we couldn't get everything done within one fiscal year. And so it's just like we meet bi-weekly, we talk about it. And that's how we've continued to build out our roadmap.
Thank you for that. I think I will conclude with this one. Again, we'll address all questions, but this is interesting. There's what this individual's really getting around is the emotion that goes into decisions and improvement or not. But let me read it verbatim. So there can be a lack of trust between the group that needs to work on VPR or come up with a voice of improvement and IT due to past either leadership at the agency or a failed original implementation of Excella. Leadership has now changed, but that trust permeates and hasn't fully been rebuilt. Have you experienced that either here, Abby, or in your career? And how do you rationalize that? How do you progress forward in something like that?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. And it's a challenging one, right? Because you're dealing with people and we all have our own experiences. For me, it's like keeping that line of communication open and just being supportive, right? Just saying what is possible and what can we do. But at the end of the day, I'll keep going back to the BPR. That was an opportunity for everyone to have a voice. And like I said, trust wasn't there. There were some people that we could tell we needed to have a separate one-on-one with them so they could truly be open so that, they could be free to say what they want. And so I think it just takes time and continue building that. For me, I'm being in IT, I'm like, agile, right? It's continuously you iterate on things. And that's no different than relationships. Okay, you hit a roadblock, how can you make it better? And having that open communication and just keep coming back and doing what you say we're going to do. And just proving that you are there and be that trusted partner for your business coming from IT. Sometimes you're not going to get it right. I know I don't always get it right either, but then I can learn from that and do better. And I think that's the key is to building that business relationship.
Thank you for your candor. And I would add, in my experience, I've spent 12 years now in GovTech with the public sector, and it is such a referential industry, meaning the strength in other jurisdictions referencing fill in the blank goes longer than in any other industry, goes further. And so to those individuals that have the same experience based behind that question, I'm not going to sign Abby up to connect with everyone on this call, but we can certainly help facilitate. Abby is one voice of many we work with. And the beauty of what we get to do at GovPath is we listen to you. First and foremost, we need to stop talking and we just listen. And then it reminds us a lot of times of a similar movie at another jurisdiction. And we're happy to, bridge connections to build that referenceability. We do it all the time, and it's part of what we have an honor to do. Okay, I might have lied. One last question because it came in, Abby, and then we'll close. So, and it's around it's not a technology problem. We had a clarity problem. So smaller jurisdictions, and I would say Avondale falls into that smaller camp, struggle to find time for employees to implement and to identify process. So any suggestions around creating time in the develop and identification process to get employees involved, e.g. that whole clarity aspect?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And we're challenged with that. Let's be real, right? That is, I think, across the board in any organization. I came from the private sector. I think identifying your needs and your process is key. What we're working on is saying, let's map it out and draw it out. We're starting to use some tools, right? Like some AI help you a little bit, like ChatGPT. But it's going that direction. Before we're going to build something, let's partner together. Let's start documenting your workflow and what that looks like. And we've been asking, hey, if you need a change, show me your workflow today. How can we make it better? But finding that time, you're right. But if we don't have time to identify it, then how can you fix it? So it's how do you do that? Facilitate that, right? What does it say if you don't have time to, what is it? If you don't have time to do it right the first time, how do you have time to fix it? Because it takes twice as long to fix something than it does to get it right the first time. So changing that mindset is probably key, but it's gonna just keep at it. There's no one size fits all for that scenario when you don't have a lot of time. What's important to you? But I'll have to say, it is worth it. We were building out a conversational AI for our ITSM system. And the engineer made me draw up the workflows before we could build it out. And I tell you what, it went so much faster. Once I got one done, I could get them all done, and we were able to create the solution in no time before than trying not to. So it is worth it. Be patient, and once you get going, you'll find like, oh wow, I can actually save a lot of time at the end of the day.
Well, thank you for that. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I know we have about 10 minutes left, so I'll give 10 minutes back to the audience. What I want to say, though, thank you very much, Abby, and the City of Avondale for your time today. And to the listeners, thank you for your attendance. Please reach out to your appropriate GovPath team member if you're interested in learning more. We are going to send out some communication ourselves. And lastly, please watch your inbox for the next save the date to our next webinar, which will be 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, March 25th, where Miss Jess Irving from San Mateo County, California, managed services from the perspective of what prompted the county to consider the service, and most importantly, what intended and unintended benefits have been received by the county. So until next time, folks, have a great rest of your Thursday. Take care.
Thank you.